Okay, let's picture this. The River Thames, dusk is falling, everything's getting a bit dim, murky.
Yeah, that eerie light where shadows play tricks on your eyes.
Exactly. And then out of that water, they pull two bodies. A man, dressed really well, surprisingly so, and a young woman.
That contrast is immediately striking, isn't it? High quality clothes, but pulled from the river, it just doesn't quite add up straight away.
It screams that something's wrong. Was it an accident or something else? That's the mystery.
That clash, elegance versus this grim end, it hooks you, makes you lean in.
And that's precisely what we're going to do today. This is our deep dive. You, our learner, you've shared these fascinating excerpts about the discovery of Toby Argyll and this unnamed young woman.
So our job's to unpack it all. Look at the scene, the investigator, the first hints of trouble.
We'll guide you through the key bits, those moments that make you go, uh-huh, but, without drowning you in detail. Right, let's get into it. The way Monk retrieves the bodies. There's a care there, despite the grimness.
There really is. He's careful with the boat, studying it. It shows professionalism, respect even. And right away, little details start popping out.
Yeah, like Toby Argyll, about 30, mustache, those well-cut clothes. He looks like someone of means.
Definitely. And the missing hat. Seems small, but back then, quite noticeable for a man like that to be without one.
Then they find his wallet, money still inside, cards identifying him. Toby Argyll, Lambeth address. Seems straightforward.
But then you notice the addresses. His Lambeth place isn't far from where the young woman lived, off Westminster Bridge Road.
Proximity. Suggests they might have known each other, maybe. More than just strangers found together.
It plants that seed of doubt, doesn't it? And the young woman herself. The description is haunting.
Eyes closed, skin pale, hands folded, her hair smoothed down.
It feels managed. Like someone composed her after death. Not the messy scene you'd expect from an accidental drowning.
And the idea she might have been in the water longer than him, that just adds another wrinkle to the timeline. How they end up together.
Exactly. That careful presentation, it points towards something less random, perhaps more sinister.
So, to figure this out, we need to understand the investigator, Monk. What's his mindset here? What's driving him?
Well, we learn he's seen death before. He carries a sense of loss. This isn't new territory for him, emotionally. But practically, he needs the work. His patron, Lady Calandra Davio, has gone to Vienna. So steady employment is suddenly crucial.
Right, real-world pressures. It's not just about the case, it's about his own situation.
And the alternative, Hester possibly going back to private nursing, living away, that adds a personal urgency. He needs this river patrol job.
So it's a mix of professionalism, past experience, and, frankly, desperation driving him to be thorough here.
Absolutely. That need to prove himself, maybe keep Hester close. It fuels his dedication.
Okay, so body's recovered, Monk's motivated. What are the first theories floating around?
Well, there's Palmer. He just waves it off. Come off one of the bridges, he says. Shock, drowning, simple accident.
Easy answer.
Yeah.
Too easy for Monk, though.
Right. Monk pushes back immediately. He's like, wait a minute. Could it be foul play, stabbing, strangulation?
And he thinks about the woman. Her clothes, maybe family somewhere. Could she have been pregnant? He's seeing people, not just bodies.
That's Monk's skepticism, his commitment to the truth for the families. He won't just accept the easy out. These were people.
Which leads to that awful task, telling the family. The mood must have been heavy.
Oh, undoubtedly, a real sense of dread. Monk and Orm preparing themselves for that knock on the door. You know it's going to be devastating.
And there's that detail about how they look. Orm, sort of ordinary. Monk, more striking, intense. Not exactly comforting faces to see bringing bad news.
No. And the landlady at Toby's lodgings, her nervousness. It shows how quickly the shock spreads beyond just the immediate family.
Then they arrive at the Argyll residence. More formal. An anxious butler. A different world. And Monk has to tell Alan Argyll about his brother.
Alan's reaction is pure shock. Disbelief. You were there. Like, he wishes someone could have stopped it. He just can't accept someone falls off a bridge like that.
It switches fast, though. Shock turns to anger, suspicion. Was there a crime? He demands. He's already thinking foul play.
He is. And then, bam, he drops that line about Mary Havilland, forgiving her if she had not taken Toby with her.
Whoa. Okay, so there's a history, a relationship, and some other tragedy involving Mary's father. It just exploded the complexity.
Totally. And then Jenny Argyll, Alan's wife, explains more. Mary was obsessed with her father's death, convinced it wasn't suicide, refused to accept it.
Paints a picture of Mary as deeply troubled, consumed by this past event.
And Alan's just overwhelmed by grief, can't even speak. Jenny's unsteady. The whole family is reeling, not just from Toby's death, but from this whole tangled history resurfacing.
It's a mess, and as Monk and Orm leave, Orm asks that key question.
Yeah, the chilling one. Did Mary mean to go over alone, or does she mean to take Toby too?
And Monk just hopes it was an accident. A simpler, less awful explanation. But the doubt is there.
That doubt really fuels the next steps. Monk briefs Hester, tells her what Alan Argyll said about the father-in-law, Havilland. His fear of landslips, his obsession.
But Monk's reaction is cautious. I don't know, he's not just swallowing Argyll's story whole.
No. And then learning Mary broke off the engagement with Toby but was still so distressed about her father, it reinforces that the father's death is central somehow.
There's also that mention of tension with a colleague, Clacton.
Yeah, just a hint of internal police politics. Maybe Clacton thinks Monk's wasting time, but Monk seems determined to push forward on this.
Which takes him to Mary Haviland's place. And he meets the butler, Cardman, who seems very composed.
Yes, very proper, reserved. Monk starts sympathetically acknowledging the tragedy, but his questions are sharp. About Mary's unhappiness, the timing of her father's death.
Cardman gives polite, careful answers, though, right? Doesn't reveal much initially.
Not really. Monk tries to connect, asks about Cardman's own father, tries to find common ground in grief. That seems to surprise Cardman a bit.
And does Cardman let anything slip?
There's a subtle hesitation when he talks about Mr. Haviland's suicide. Especially, like, maybe he didn't fully believe it either. And Monk picks up on the loyalty Cardman has to this disgraced household.
Loyalty despite the double disgrace, as Monk thinks of it. Then Monk asks, who investigated Haviland's death?
Superintendent Runcorn. That name immediately sets up a potential dynamic. Cardman calls Runcorn civil and thorough, almost defending the original investigation before it's even questioned.
Monk feels for Mary, though. He doesn't want her remembered as an outcast if her father's death wasn't suicide. He feels he has to challenge Runcorn.
That sense of justice kicks in. He feels compelled to find out for sure. So off he goes to the police station.
Even the desk sergeant seems a bit wary. Suggests maybe Monk doesn't always fit in smoothly with the regular force. And Monk's thinking about Hester, about not wanting to be vulnerable. It adds another layer to why he needs to solve this.
He gets straight to the point with Runcorn, doesn't he? Who did Mary think was responsible?
Yeah, very direct. And Runcorn's like, did she? He clearly assumes suicide all along. The news about Mary dying genuinely shocks him.
Runcorn then lays out the original case. Stable boy found Haviland. Routine checked out. Butler confirmed the boy's story. Seemed cut and dried.
But Monk's mind is racing, isn't it? Thinking about Alan Argyll's possible motives. Could Mary have killed herself and Toby died trying to save her? It's complicated.
Very. But then Runcorn drops the alibis for Alan and Toby for the time of Haviland's death.
So that seems to shut down the idea they directly killed Havilland. Monk must feel like he's hitting a wall.
You can almost feel his frustration. And Runcorn's challenge, are you giving up? It's like a dare. Monk denies it, but inside he's adrift. No clear next step.
This feels like a turning point. They need something new, a fresh perspective.
Definitely. And that leads Monk into a different part of London's underbelly. He runs into Scuff.
Scuff? Who is he?
A young toucher, someone who scavenges in the sewers. He seems genuinely concerned for Monk, asks if he's all right. They talk about getting food. Scuff's worried about the coming winter.
Gives you a glimpse into that tougher side of London life.
Absolutely. And Scuff brings a unique perspective. He talks about the sewers, how the Toshers are unhappy. There are changes happening down there, messing with their established territories.
He sees Monk as an outsider in that world, right?
Yeah.
Inexperienced novice.
Yeah. He has this deep, practical knowledge of the hidden city beneath the streets, which might turn out to be important.
Meanwhile, Hester's investigation starts taking shape, too. She gets news about someone named Sutton wanting to see her.
Yes. Margaret tells her Sutton's at the clinic, looking worried. Though apparently Snoot, the dog, is fine, which is a relief. Hester's immediately concerned for Sutton himself. They end up having breakfast together at the clinic.
And Sutton unburdens himself. What's he worried about?
The sewers. Specifically, the new tunnel construction. There are hundreds of navvies digging tunnels for railways, water, all sorts. But Sutton thinks it's getting dangerous. They're rushing, he says, not properly checking the ground, ignoring old streams, underground workings. He's afraid of cave-ins.
That connects back to Haviland's supposed fears, doesn't it? Landslips.
It does. And Hester, being Hester, decides she needs to see this work for herself. Claudine, her friend, is supportive but worried for her safety.
So she goes.
She does. Takes an omnibus with Sutton and snoot the dog towards Farringdon Road near the tunnel site. Sutton points out London's hidden rivers, the Walbrook, the Tyburn, the fleet buried beneath the city.
Fascinating. What's it like when they get there?
It's chaotic, debris everywhere. Workers question them. The excavation is incredibly deep. Hester feels vertigo just looking down. You see brickwork, scaffolding, a steam engine pumping away. It's a massive, noisy operation.
And dangerous, as Sutton warned.
Extremely. Sutton explains about the gases methane that build up in sewers. Explosions are a real risk. And choke damp, another deadly hazard.
Grim. But they're there for a reason.
Yes. Sutton leads Hester through a narrow hidden door. Inside, they find Collard, one of the navvies who's been injured. His wife is there, too.
What does Collard say? Does he confirm Sutton's fears?
Absolutely. He says the companies are racing for contracts, cutting corners, not surveying the ground properly, clay, rock, old mine workings. They're digging through all sorts without enough care. He feels helpless, like he can see disaster coming.
And his wife.
She has this bitter outburst, says everyone's scared, but nobody speaks up because they'll lose their jobs. They need the money, even if it means risking their lives. Fear keeps them silent.
That's powerful. So Hester's now seen the physical dangers firsthand. What's her next move?
She goes to visit the Applegates. Rose Applegate is elegantly dressed. Hester is very aware of the social difference between them.
Okay, who are the Applegates in relation to all this?
Rose seems connected, perhaps socially, to the Havillands or Argylls. Hester shares what she learned from someone called Mr. Sixsmith about Havilland's fears, his claustrophobia, his apparent irrationality about enclosed spaces.
So connecting Havilland's anxieties to the tunnel dangers she just witnessed.
Exactly. And Rose Applegate becomes convinced Mary Havilland's death wasn't just suicide either. She wants to know what Mary knew about these safety concerns, who she might have told.
But her husband, Applegate, is cautious.
Very. He warns Rose, and by extension Hester, about the danger of chasing the wrong theory. And specifically, the danger Alan Argyll might pose if he was involved in Havilland's death. He actually forbids Rose from putting herself at risk.
Interesting dynamic there. But Rose and Hester seem determined. Where do they go next?
To an infirmary to speak to a Mr. Lamb about accident records. Hester, of course, knows the smell of hospitals all too well.
They're looking for proof of injuries related to the sewer work.
Yes. Rose asks Lamb directly about serious injuries. But Lamb is evasive, tries to downplay everything, talks about minor cuts and bruises.
Is covering something up.
It seems like it. Rose isn't having it. She reveals Hester's background nursing in the Crimea with Florence Nightingale.
Ah, playing the authority card. How does Lamb react?
He gets flustered, accuses them of deception, but Rose holds firm, insists he make proper notes of the accidents they do know about. She won't be brushed off.
Good for her. What do Hester and Rose discuss afterwards?
They wonder if Mary knew about specific dangerous machinery or practices. Who would she have told? Rose immediately thinks of Morgan, her husband, Applegate, and she realizes Mary went to see him but never came back, implying something might have happened then.
More connections, more potential danger, and then Sutton reappears.
Yes, he finds them. He believes someone involved will eventually tell the truth about what happened, and he makes an offer.
What kind of offer?
He offers to take Hester into the Thames tunnel itself, disguised as his apprentice.
Wow, that's bold. Does Hester agree?
After a moment of surprise, yes. She agrees, very soberly. She knows the risk.
So she gets disguised.
Yep. Hair pulled back, flat cap, thick muffler, ill-fitting men's clothes and boots. A complete transformation.
They go into the tunnel. Where do they enter?
They take an omnibus to the Wapping entrance. The building is surprisingly grand, almost like a monument. They descend long circular steps deep underground. Hester realizes there's no way for vehicles to get down there.
What's it like down there in the Thames tunnel?
Strange. Senses distorted, damp air, flickering gas jets casting long shadows, figures moving in the gloom, mostly women, apparently buying and selling things. The sounds are heavy, unnatural.
Sutton warns her not to stare.
Yeah,
Act like a rat catcher's apprentice.
Exactly, blend in. And then they meet someone, Blackie, another tusher.
What do they talk about?
They chat about rat catching versus the dangers of the new tunnels. Blackie mentions one tunnel crew cutting right through an underground river, drowning some workers. Just casually.
Good Lord. Does he offer any warnings?
He does, a serious one. He tells Sutton basically, stay away from those tunnels. Don't ask questions about Havilland's death.
Why? Does he connect it?
He mentions a girl, clearly meaning Mary, whose father was scared of the dark and supposedly shot himself. But the girl didn't believe it. Blackie knows about unsafe practices, shortcuts being taken, and he hints there's someone dangerous down there, someone connected to it all.
So both Monk and Hester are finding threads leading back to Havilland's death and the tunnels.
Yes, from very different angles. Monk pursuing the police investigation, Hester diving into the physical reality and the workers' experiences.
And when Monk gets home, Hester is visibly shaken by what she's learned.
Yeah, Monk sees the fear in her eyes. He just asks simply, "Where did you learn all this?"
And Hester tells him about Mary's questions.
She recounts how Mary had asked about rivers, clay, injured men, engineers, implying Mary already suspected something was wrong before she died. Hester's exhausted, emotionally drained by it all.
Meanwhile, Monk's still pushing his own leads. He talks to Sixsmith again.
Yes, that character connected to Havilland. Monk notes Sixsmith doesn't say Toby would never hurt her. Sixsmith gets evasive, leaves abruptly. Monk's still zeroed in on the timing of Haviland's death.
He's starting to form a theory about motive.
He realizes discrediting Havilland, making him seem irrational, would benefit someone whose project might be delayed by Haviland's safety concerns. That points towards Alan Argyll, maybe Toby too.
And if Mary knew something that could expose that?
She might have paid for it with her life. Monk decides he has to go back, reinvestigate Haviland's death properly. He needs to talk to Runcorn again.
He doesn't seem thrilled about that prospect.
No, there's definitely some history or friction there, but he goes. He briefs Runcorn on his findings, his fears. He initially kind of excludes Runcorn, then quickly corrects himself.
How does he correct himself?
He suggests they work together, Metropolitan Police and River Police, mentions a letter, possibly evidence. Runcorn seems surprised, maybe even a bit hopeful at the idea of cooperation.
Monk feels some guilt about past interactions with Runcorn, doesn't he? Times he might have betrayed his trust.
Yeah, there's an undercurrent of that. But Runcorn seems grimly determined now. Justice needs to be done. He agrees they need to start over, reinvestigate Haviland's death, beginning right back on Havilland Street.
Even though Runcorn still has those alibis for the Argylls.
He does. Those alibis for the actual time of Haviland's murder seem solid, but maybe there's another way they were involved.
So they go back to Havilland Street at night, in the snow, looking for witnesses, cab drivers, local constables.
Yeah, retracing steps. Monk reflects on how time has changed both him and Runcorn. It's a moment of shared purpose, maybe?
But Monk's own boss, Clacton, is still antagonistic.
Oh, yes. Clacton gives him grief. And then Farnham, presumably a higher up in the River Police, summons Monk.
Why? What does Farnham want?
Farnham is furious. He thinks Monk's investigation, focusing on suicides that might not be suicides, is making the River Police look corrupt or incompetent. He praises another officer, Durbin, and demands Monk clean up this mess and prove the force's integrity.
That puts Monk in a tight spot. Does he suspect Durbin?
He has this fleeting, unsettling thought. Are Durbin's crime figures too good? Could there be corruption? He dismisses the idea about Durbin being dishonest, but realizes he doesn't really know him that well.
Yet, surprisingly, Monk feels protective of Durbin's reputation.
He does. He's determined to figure it out, maybe find an innocent explanation for any discrepancies. It shows Monk's complex sense of loyalty.
Okay, so back on Havilland Street with Runcorn, they knock on a different door this time.
Yes. They meet a Mrs. Ewart Melisande. She's described as elegant.
Runcorn questions her about the night Havilland died. Did she see anything unusual?
A man named Barkley tries to dismiss them, but Melisande politely insists on helping if she can.
And did she see something?
She did. She remembers seeing a man leaving the mews near Haviland's stables that night. A lean man, thin face, scarf, hat, long dark hair.
Any distinguishing features?
Yes, light-colored eyes, blue or gray, and she noticed his eye teeth were unusually pointed, like little fangs.
Wow, specific. Anything else?
A smell, an acrid, smoky kind of smell about him. She only realized later it might have been gun smoke.
Gun smoke. That's huge. It points directly to murder, not suicide.
Absolutely. A potential eyewitness description of someone leaving the scene shortly after Havilland must have died.
While Monk is doing this, he's also worried about Scuff, isn't he?
Yes, the weather's harsh. He worries Scuff might fall prey to a kidsman, someone who exploits vulnerable youths. He feels responsible for him.
Monk also has this idea about a stolen carving. Where does that come from?
He's reviewing theft reports, maybe looking for patterns or connections. He sees reports of thefts from passenger boats, and he finds notes by Durbin about another case, the murder of Roger Thorwood. Durbin seemed really invested, angry, disappointed.
What's the connection?
It's unclear at first, but Durbin's notes mention Orm, Monk's colleague, not being properly compensated for something. It's another thread, another potential hidden story within the force.
Okay, but armed with Melisandre's description, Monk and Runcorn go back to the Havilland house.
Yes, back to Cardman, the butler.
And Cardman picks up on something Monk says.
Immediately. Monk uses the word killed when talking about Mr. Havilland. Cardman zeroes in on it. Monk confirms, yes, they believe he was murdered, lured to the stable.
Then they show him something, an envelope.
Runcorn shows him the envelope from a note, presumably the one used to lure Havilland. Cardman instantly recognizes the handwriting.
Whose is it?
Miss Jennifer's. Jenny Argyll, Alan Argyll's wife.
Jenny wrote the note luring her own father to his death.
Or at least she wrote the note that resulted in his death. Monk adds Melisandre's description of the man smelling of gun smoke seen leaving the mews. The pieces are clicking into place.
So they confront Jenny Argyll.
Right, in her own home, she gets defensive naturally. Monk accuses her directly. Her father was murdered, and did she write the letter asking him to go to the stable?
How does she react? We don't quite get her answer here, but the accusation hangs heavy.
Absolutely. And just as things are intensifying, Clacton throws another spanner in the works.
What does Clacton do now?
He smugly suggests Monk is doing private work for Alan Argyll, trying to frame someone else for the murder to protect Argyll.
What? That's twisting everything. Monk must be stunned.
Yeah, it's a nasty self-serving attack. Monk realizes Clacton is dangerous, purely out for himself.
So Monk needs legal help, or at least strategic advice. He goes to Rathbone.
Oliver Rathbone, the barrister. Monk lays out everything: Mary's death, the Havilland murder investigation, how it's now pointing towards Sixsmith being potentially framed, but also Jenny's involvement with the letter.
But Monk doesn't want Rathbone to defend Sixsmith, does he?
No, that's the twist. He wants Rathbone to help prosecute Sixsmith, but in a way that ultimately exposes Alan Argyll, whom Monk is convinced is the real mastermind.
Why does Monk think Argyll wanted Havilland dead? Just because of construction delays. Rathbone is skeptical.
Monk argues it's bigger than delays. Havilland might have been about to go to the authorities, exposing safety issues, threatening Argyll's profits, maybe his entire investment. The stakes were huge.
And the letter. Jenny wrote it, but Monk believes Alan made her write it.
Exactly, but as Rathbone points out, they only have the envelope with Jenny's writing as proof linking her, not definitive proof Alan ordered it.
Monk feels conflicted, doesn't he? About maybe bending rules or exposing minor wrongs to get at the bigger truth at Argyll?
He does. Rathbone advises him, let the prosecution of Sixsmith proceed based on the current evidence. Meanwhile, Monk needs to dig deeper, find concrete proof of Argyll's potential losses, a direct link between Argyll and the murder itself.
Monk seems determined, and Rathbone actually expresses concern for Monk's safety.
Which is unusual for Rathbone, perhaps. It shows the perceived danger involved in taking on someone like Alan Argyll.
Monk then updates Runcorn on the legal strategy.
Yes, outlining the plan. They need a better description of the killer from the Mews.
Back to Mrs. Ewart.
And this time, she seems less tense. She repeats the details. Lean man, long hair, light eyes, and those pointed eye teeth. She also adds she feared the stain she saw on him wasn't just manure, but blood.
Chilling. And then Scuff shows up again.
Yeah, he seems a bit hurt. Monk didn't trust him more earlier. Monk explains he was trying to protect him.
Scuff asks a smart question, though.
He does. If this murder happened on the street, why aren't the regular Rozzers handling it? Why is Monk River Police involved? And can they even trust the regular police? It raises jurisdictional questions and hints at potential distrust between forces.
Monk's feeling the pressure of leadership, thinking about Orm's expectations, feeling like a burden, maybe?
Yeah, maybe like Runcorn used to feel about him. He spends a busy night dealing with a separate warehouse theft near King Edward's Stairs.
And during this other case, something happens related to that stolen carving.
Yes, he realizes someone's deliberately bumping into him. He suspects it's connected to the carving. Another officer, Butterworth, confirms the theft using a prearranged password.
So they follow the thieves.
They do. Past the Surrey docks, towards Limehouse Reach. Then Monk realizes, with panic, the carving is gone. Someone lifted it right off him. Butterworth has vanished too. Looks like it. He meets a third man, then Orm arrives. They jump in a boat and pursue the thieves' boat. Orm's navigating, focused.
Where are the thieves heading?
Jacob's Island. Monk guesses their destination. It's described as a notorious, dilapidated slum, chaos.
What happens when they get there?
Monk realizes the thieves aren't taking the goods to their boss, they plan to sell it themselves. They're betraying their own leader, the Fat Man. Monk's focus shifts. Forget the original theft. He needs that carving back and wants to catch this Fat Man figure.
It turns violent.
Yes. Orm shouts a warning. One of the Fat Man's own men has killed one of the thieves. And the Fat Man now has the carving. Monk goes after him, a chaotic chase through the wreckage. He finally sees the Fat Man holding the carving.
What happens to the Fat Man?
We learn later from Crow, who's tending a gash on Monk's arm afterwards, that the Fat Man fell through a rotted pier. He's dead. Monk seems more concerned about his ruined jacket.
After all this danger and adrenaline, Monk has a moment of insight about Hester.
Yes. Suddenly he understands her drive to fight injustice isn't just idealism. It's how she copes with her own past traumas. And his own protectiveness wasn't just for her. It was tied to his own fear of loss. A big personal realization for him.
Okay, let's shift to the trial. Sixsmith is being prosecuted, presumably based on the evidence Monk and Runcorn gathered, maybe including Jenny's letter.
Right. And the defense lawyer, Toby, is cross-examining Runcorn. He questions the timing of Runcorn reopening the Havilland case, hinting Monk pushed him into it, trying to undermine the investigation's legitimacy.
Then Toby questions Melisande Ewart.
He tries to make her sighting of the man in the mews sound innocent, ordinary, but Melisande corrects him firmly. The man had no reason to be there, she says, and she believed the stain was blood. She sticks to her guns.
How is Sixsmith holding up?
He looks bleak, despairing, afraid he'll take the fall alone. Monk quietly reassures him that Rathbone, acting for the prosecution here, confusingly but aiming at Argyll, is really after Argyll.
Meanwhile, Rose Applegate has an idea for how to help.
A rather cynical one. She plans to use a memorial service for a Sir Egwin Ross castle. She sees it as a networking opportunity, but also maybe a chance to gather information or exert pressure.
What happens at the service?
Rose gets increasingly drunk, very publicly. She starts playing the violin badly, singing vulgar songs. It's deeply embarrassing for her husband, Applegate.
Hester tries to intervene.
Yes, she tries to get Rose home, but Rose stumbles and falls. Hester tries to smooth it over with Applegate, but then she has a sudden realization.
What does she realize?
Alan Argyll must have drugged Rose to discredit her, maybe stop her from influencing Jenny, or stop Jenny from testifying truthfully. It's a shocking piece of manipulation.
This leads Hester to confront Jenny Argyll again.
Yes. Hester asks Jenny directly, was she bribed? Who else could have hired the assassin that killed her father? She appeals powerfully to Jenny's conscience. Tell the truth. Don't let Sixsmith hang for something orchestrated by your husband.
While this drama unfolds, Monk is back in the sewers. With Scuff.
Scuff is leading him through the dark, dangerous tunnels. Deep sludge, eerie echoes. Monk is completely lost, relying entirely on Scuff. The smell of decay is everywhere.
Are they looking for someone? The assassin?
It seems so. They encounter other torturers. Scuff gets information someone's been using the old, less-known tunnels. There's this unspoken fear, the rules of survival down there.
And they find him.
They hear someone approaching. A lamp cuts through the darkness. It's the assassin. His features are stark in the light. He realizes he's not alone.
What happened?
He attacks immediately, shoots. Scuff cries out. Monk fires back blindly into the sudden, suffocating darkness.
Oh no, is Scuff hit?
Monk searches desperately in the dark, in the stream running through the tunnel. He finds Scuff, pale, fragile. He's been shot.
Just then, Orm arrives.
Yes, thank goodness. Orm shows up with a lantern, sees the situation. Monk just says Scuff's shot.
Scuff must be terrified. Does he want to go to a hospital?
He's terrified of hospitals. Begs Monk not to take him. Monk promises to take him home, to his and Hester's place. Orm insists he needs proper medical care, but Monk prioritizes Scuff's immediate fear.
So they take him back to Hester.
Yes. Hester and Monk spend the night tending to him, managing his fever, cleaning the wound. A long, anxious vigil.
Scuff is conscious enough to talk.
Surprisingly, yes. He asks Hester who she is, why she knows how to do this. He asks about her being a nurse in the Crimea.
Does she tell him?
She answers honestly. About why she became a nurse, her parents' disapproval. Scuff seems to gain respect for her. He asks a really poignant question, would his own parents have let him go into the army, meaning the hard life he leads?
Heartbreaking. Monk returns from court the next day. What news?
He finds warmth and comfort at home, a stark contrast to the dark, rainy day outside. But the news isn't necessarily good. There's been a tunnel collapse.
The disaster Havilland feared.
Possibly. They found 2 bodies. One man was still alive, barely. They tried to save him, but he died. Monk feels defeated, even though the man was likely suffering horribly.
Is there any connection to the case?
Yes. They encounter a tosher who recognizes the captured assassin, the man Monk shot in the sewer. This confirms Melisande Ewert's identification. Monk feels relief, but wonders if it's enough to convict Argyll or at least scare him.
He needs to tell Hester this news himself.
Yes, the emotional toll is immense. He needs that connection, that shared understanding.
Back to the trial. Rathbone is anxious before the verdict. Margaret Ballinger is there, worried.
Rathbone calls Monk to testify about his findings. Monk explains Havilland's fears the excavations getting too close to an underground river, risking collapse and flooding, laying out the potential motive for silencing him.
Then Ginny Argyll takes the stand. This must be incredibly tense.
Absolutely. Rathbone questions her about the letter. Barely audible, she confesses she wrote it, asking her father to meet in the stable at her husband's request.
A gasp in the courtroom, surely.
You can imagine. She claims Alan told her the meeting was just to persuade her father he was wrong about the tunnels, that he was being irrational.
Rathbone points out that Sixsmith's story actually supports this version of the meeting's stated purpose.
Yes, cleverly reinforcing that element while leaving the implication of Alan's manipulation hanging.
Then Alan Argyll testifies. How does he seem?
White-faced, trying to appear composed. He glances at Sixsmith in the dock, who looks hopeful.
Does Argyll admit asking Jenny to write the letter?
No. He flat out denies it, boldly. Even pretends to be surprised by the suggestion.
Toby, the defense lawyer who is effectively helping Argyll here, must be thrilled. But then the prosecution cross-examines Argyll.
Right. Toby, wait, the roles seem complex. Let's assume the prosecution lawyer cross-examines Argyll now, aiming to expose him. The lawyer expresses disbelief. Who else would ask Jenny to write such a specific note? Argyll starts to pale. He looks involuntarily toward Sixsmith, his fears showing.
He cracks.
He has an angry outburst, mentions his dead brother Toby, accuses the lawyer of lacking courage, deflecting.
But the damage is done.
The lawyer presses on triumphantly. Wasn't Havilland just a nuisance? And didn't Mary end up dead too? And Toby, linking the deaths back to Argyll's convenience. He dismisses Argyll contemptuously.
Then Sixsmith testifies. Does he stick to the story that helps Argyll?
Yes. He claims Argyll told him the meeting was about hiring men to control the unruly tushers and navvies, and that Argyll said he would deal with Havilland by showing him he was mistaken, claiming their relations were cordial. It paints Argyll as managing a problem, not plotting murder.
So what's the verdict likely to be? It seems like Argyll might get away with it and Sixsmith might be convicted, but maybe on a lesser charge if they believe he was just following orders.
It's complex. But Scuff, recovering at Monk's home, hears the news from the trial and gets excited that Argyll might finally be held responsible. Monk recounts the trial to Hester and Scuff, emphasizing his own identification of the assassin in the sewers.
But Monk isn't satisfied. He seeks out Rathbone immediately after the verdict, even interrupting his dinner.
Yes, he's agitated. He tells Rathbone the verdict, whatever it was, it seems Sixsmith might have been acquitted or gotten a light sentence, cannot stand.
Why? What has Monk realized?
He reminds Rathbone of Melisande Ewert's detailed description of the killer. The lean face, the light eyes, the pointed teeth, and the long dark hair over his collar.
Okay.
Monk reveals the crucial detail. The assassin he shot, the one now dead or captured, also had that long hair. But Sixsmith also mentioned that specific detail, long hair over the collar, when describing the man he claimed he saw Argyll meeting.
Wait. How could Sixsmith know that detail unless...
Exactly. Unless Sixsmith was the man in the mews, unless Sixsmith was the killer all along. Rathbone is floored, horrified. They've likely just secured the release of the actual murderer.
Oh my God, so Sixsmith killed Havilland, likely hired by Argyll, and then potentially killed Mary and Toby too, and played the victim.
That seems to be the horrifying realization. Sixsmith wasn't framed, he was the hitman, and he almost got away with it.
What's Monk's plan now?
Immediate action. Recapture Sixsmith. He plans to mobilize everyone. Runcorn, Orme, Crow, the navvies, the Toshers, Watermen, Sutton. A massive manhunt.
That detail about the hair, it was the killer's only slip, Monk says.
The one tiny piece of description that Sixsmith shouldn't have known but repeated.
Runcorn is on board.
Completely. Vows to find Sixsmith if they have to search every sewer in London. They wake Orme and Rathbone early in the morning. Orme is immediately ready to help. Rathbone notes Orme gives a good summary of how much Sixsmith likely knew about the tunnel dangers, reinforcing his potential ruthlessness.
They plan the search meticulously.
Yes. 4 teams looking for sightings of Sixsmith with the now identified but possibly dead captured assassin he supposedly met for Argyll. Meanwhile, Monk will focus on Havilland's fears and Sixsmith's specific knowledge of the tunnel dangers, trying to solidify the motive and means.
Sudden questions why Sixsmith wouldn't have been more careful if he knew the risks.
It makes Monk reconsider. Was Sixsmith just callous about the dangers? Or maybe simply incompetent despite his knowledge? His perspective is shifting.
Back at the house, Hester talks with Scuff. He asks if Monk will put it right.
Hester struggles with whether to give him false hope. She decides she needs to act too. She resolves to confront Jenny Argyll one last time about her perjury.
She arranges for Margaret Bellinger to stay with Scuff.
Scuff resists at first, then accepts. Hester goes to Jenny.
What does she say to Jenny?
She's forceful, urges Jenny to confess to perjury now. It might be her only chance to save herself, Hester argues coldly, thinking also of Jenny's children, laying out the stark choices.
And Monk and Orm head back into the sewers themselves.
Yes. But this time, the smell of gas is stronger. The rats are panicked, fleeing. The danger feels immediate.
And Monk has this lingering fear.
That Sixsmith, the man they helped free, the actual killer who knows these tunnels intimately, might be the one setting a trap for them down there in the darkness. The hunter has become the hunted, and the prey knows the terrain.
Wow. What a turnaround. So the initial mystery of two bodies in the Thames has spiraled into this incredibly complex web of murder, corporate negligence, perjury, and a desperate hunt for a killer hiding in the most dangerous part of the city.
Exactly. We started with the seemingly straightforward, if tragic, drowning, maybe a murder-suicide pact. But peeling back the layers revealed so much more. Jenny's perjury, driven by fear or loyalty, the near-perfect deception by Sixsmith, and now this frantic race against time in the sewers.
The aha moment for you, the listener, is realizing how interconnected everything was. The unsafe tunnels weren't just background, they were central to the motive. The social pressures on Jenny, the loyalty of Cardman, the specific details noticed by Melisande, even Scuff's knowledge of the underworld. It all mattered. Initial assumptions. Completely overturned.
And you should care because this delves into timeless themes, doesn't it? The pursuit of justice, how social status can protect the guilty, the hidden dangers lurking beneath the city's glittering surface. It shows how easily truth can be manipulated and how vital those seemingly small details are in uncovering major crimes.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? How often do we just accept the surface story, the official explanation? What crucial truths might be hiding just out of sight? Like those secrets festering beneath Victorian London streets. What other cases, maybe even ones considered closed, could hold similar hidden depths, just waiting for someone to look closer?